Well. Good. I wonder if this is live. Are we live? We are live. Well. Good evening, everyone. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is your crazy uncle. And wait a minute. I'm getting feedback. There we go. All righty. Yeah, technical difficulty. I had a glitch in the Matrix, which I'm sure we all are part of the Matrix, and we're all part of the glitch. Nonetheless, here we are. It's isn't it Thursday? Yeah, it's Thursday, April 11th, 9 p.m. Bringing you another little hour stream to talk about a few different topics, from Sebastian Rogers to the Idaho 4, and I don't know, maybe some of the lunacy and the ineptitude that we all display seem to cuddle with as we jump on the internet to follow the fiction tellers, to the people that want to always take data and interpret it in the most horrific way, paint the ugliest picture, and and get us all to follow them around like we're hunting witches in the 1600s. I do have somewhere Ed. It will be Mr. Cletus is going to be added to the stream, and he's always almost a voice of reason. I don't want to give him a monopoly on that, because sometimes he's very unreasonable. But to all of those people, and with no further ado, whatever the hell that word means, we're going to bring Cletus in.
Sometimes I'm unreasonable.
Oh, you heard that part?
Yeah, you can hear it backstage.
I was trying to talk behind your back, because that's what I specialize in. That's how you're supposed to deal with friends. You talk behind their back.
Well, you're a fucking YouTuber now, so that's
that I gotta learn. So I gotta learn the new ways of the YouTubing, huh? I gotta talk behind people's backs.
Yep.
I don't know how good I'm going to be at that.
Just make sure you get your $8.99 to do so.
Mm-hmm. Well, you need $7.99 in order to talk behind people's backs. It's amazing what $2 will do for some of these creators, and the directions they'll take and the things they'll go to protect, as if they're trying to protect somebody from a moral high ground. And really, they're just trying to protect a few dollars of income. And that's so consistent across our society lately that then you wonder why the politicians are stealing, robbing us blind. You'll argue over a couple of YouTube streamers. A lot of these people, their fucking follower count, or somebody's in your stream and they may have helped you build a computer and sent you money for it, and now those people can run rampage all over your fucking followers and all over the internet, and you still hold loyal to them because they helped you pay for a computer. What the fuck is that all about, bro?
I don't know. We don't even do it just with YouTube or with politics. I think it just starts with social interactions, right? I mean, if somebody says something to somebody that makes sense to them, they start forming a bond, right? And then what it really comes down to is, once they show something that tears that bond completely apart because they stand for something you're not for, what do you do with that? Do you follow them, or do you break fucking ties?
Well, that all comes down to your purpose of the interaction, right? So the context of the interaction, the mutual goal, and if here's something I've said my whole life, and I don't know if people understand it, but everybody has a motive, and most times they try to keep that motive secret, but that motive is as plain as the nose on their face. And if their motive is anything other than honesty, it's generally pretty easy to find. And you have to decide if that motive is something that you can live with, you can live side by side with, interact with it, and that's all you can do. I don't object to anybody making money in these streams, right? But if you're going to put making money as your priority, and you're going to allow pure fucking scumbags to run around, or you're going to encourage them or bring them in or give them a platform to fucking be scumbags, then I can't accept it. Your platform no longer is something that's acceptable to me. It's okay you're doing that. Let me just say, it's not okay, but it is what it is. They're fiction tellers, right? So, they're going to do what they're going to do. Well, don't put on that mask that you're the, the nicest person in the fucking room, and your motives are purely kind. When in fact, no, they're for a fucking few more dollars here or there. I don't know. It's like whatever, man.
Yeah, nobody ever talks about the motive of the honest man, do they?
No.
And it's kind of funny. It really is kind of funny because I think more people should. We might actually learn something,
Or the truth, which is often this is the funniest part about all these fiction tellers is the truth is generally available. It just takes more work to get to it. It takes a deeper understanding, maybe reading into something or looking something. It takes action and effort usually. Because if the truth were something that were as easy as a lie, right? A lie is as simple as 2 letters. No, that's all it takes to lie. But the truth could take volumes of books to explain, right? And people just don't want to go through the books. They'd rather go for the simplicity. Let someone else think for them. Let the herd decide.
Well, I think the truth is actually oftentimes pretty simple, and the problem is patience, right? A lot of times it takes time for the truth to come out. Does it make sense? It takes time, like it in any case, right, where there's a crime, unless the person that did it is standing there saying, "I did it. Take me to jail. I'm guilty. Let's not argue about it." Then it does require some level of patience for the facts to be presented, and more times than not, they'll present themselves.
Correct. And then like today, even in politics, when they're talking about that reauthorizing a FISA, and there is no effort to ensure that we win. There is no place to go where we can coalesce and our opinion can be heard. And there's nobody out there attempting to even create that. What they're doing is the Tuckers of the world and the other people, these idiots and the fucking talking heads all over Twitter and all over these social media sites, just keep telling you how outrageously bad this FISA authority is, and how they misuse it, and how they spy on Americans, and how they and they really okay. But after hearing that once, right, and reviewing the documents and seeing cases that confirm that assessment is accurate, then why aren't we moving on to the next level of finding a solution, right? And that's the part that's been that for whatever reason, I don't know, man, if people are just all pussies, or they're just stupid, or they're not being given the opportunity, which is probably a big part of this. There's opportunity.
I think it's, goes back to, again, presenting an alternative, right? And that alternative requires somebody to step forward. And you'll run into 2 situations, 3 situations, really. Somebody that doesn't see that spending their time on that would be more valuable than what they're currently spending their time on. Somebody that doesn't want to be guilty by association by, basically taking part in that, in whatever realm you want to, whatever sandbox you want to play in or break the walls down on, right?
Well, I'm gonna read a little excerpt here. Do I still have it? Okay. Just because I know a bunch of people, well, a few people from True Crime, and I do hashtag Sebastian Rogers. I do hashtag the Idaho 4, so it's only natural people interested in those 2 cases will come in here through X or through YouTube, whichever it may be. So I want to point something out here. When you read the information that was provided to arrest Bryan Kohberger, the deficiencies in the information could fill volumes of books and shelves and shelves and shelves of a library. The deficiencies are blatant and they're off the fucking wall, and nobody really took time to review the information and see it. What they did is they let other people read it and other people's interpretation of the data, which led them all to believe Bryan Kohberger was stalking these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was based on statements made in an arrest affidavit, a probable cause arrest. And yet, when you read the probable cause arrest, even they don't accuse Bryan Kohberger of stalking directly. They don't. What they say is pretty clear. It says, From on December 23rd, 2022, I was granted a search warrant for Koberger's historical phone records. It's not what I paraphrase that. From June 23rd, 22, to current, which would have been when the day he issued the warrant. Looking for prospective location information and a pen register trap and trace on the 8458 phone to aid in efforts to determine if Koberger stalked any of the victims. Now, that's a good reason to get a warrant, but I believe that reason to get a warrant is insufficient and improper after an arrest. It should have preceded the arrest. That was information you should have known, and the results of that should have been entered into the application, or you should have been able to determine that he didn't do that, and therefore it would reduce his place on the suspect list. You see? And that's what's always kind of drove me nuts with the Idaho 4, is that so many of the people that run around screaming he's guilty, he did this, he did that, their arguments aren't supported in any real life factual statements. Their arguments are conclusions based on what they think could have happened. And it always seems to me that the worst thing you could possibly think about another person is what everybody fucking flocks to. Well, look what they did to Chris. Look what they're doing to him.
And in Koberger situation, right? The very first thing I remember coming out as the popular narrative was that he was an incel. Do you remember that? That was the first thing I think anybody ever accused him of, other than the crime. And that was that damn Coggin Doppler that came up with that.
Cum Dumpster?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is her name? Jennifer Cum Dumpster?
Yeah. Coggin Doppler.
Yeah. I know who she is. The retired FBI agent that looks like the shit dried on her face from her fellow FBI agents and she never wiped it off. Or is that just her makeup? I'm not too sure. But anyway. I guess when they dry, it's all the same. I don't know.
It's the shit you get from behind the Dollar General.
Bitch wasn't in the dumpster; she was under it. Okay, but yeah, and in the probable cause affidavit, the funny thing about that is it's full, and this is important. It's full of supposition and accusations and conspiracy theories. There is no proof. Now we know for sure that those 12 car trips were not associated with Brian stalking the victims, because the prosecution just admitted that yesterday. He actually attacked the defense for their surveyor to ask the public if they had been aware that Brian Koberger is accused of stalking the victims. And the prosecution attacked that in the survey, saying that he's impugning his client and that that's a false statement. Why are these things being included in the questionnaire? And unbeknownst to the crack smoking Bill Thompson, the reason they're in the questionnaire, you fat loser, is because the public is being swamped with the idea that he was stalking them through your media outlets. They constantly accuse the guy of doing this, and they use the 12 trips that he made late at night to support that accusation. And there's nowhere in here is there any evidence at all that he stalked them. There's no evidence result of their work to look into whether he stalked them, which is what the warrant said. We don't know the conclusions of that, but we do now because of Bill Thompson. He violated the gag order in court while he's trying to accuse the other side of violating the gag order for asking questions that the people that view this stuff have either helped formulate or have pushed that Koberger was the stalker. How can you explain 12 trips? He's an American, bro. He ain't got to explain jack shit to you and why he was driving that late at night. Nothing. He has to say nothing. And I don't know why other people don't understand that, Cletus.
Well, and I mean, in fairness, right? I didn't hear the whole thing. I only heard just a little bit of it. It sounds like I heard a little bit of it right in the meat of it. But the one question in the 5 minutes of it I did hear that I walked away with is how are you proposing that if you're not going to argue with a survey, what would the questions be that the PCA don't already imply?
Right.
So if you don't want to bias a jury, but the PCA is 100% biased toward his guilt because there's nothing factual in it that actually ties to him being at that house.
The PCA itself, the officers themselves, the investigators are Brian Kohlberger's alibi. She has said that in court without making it that simple to hear. She's argued for discovery and that she needs an extension for the alibi that the state demands lawfully to be given to them. That the alibi will be determined and it will be formed based on state witnesses and experts of the prosecution. She said that to the public, and the public somehow is so caught up in going after the fictitious bullshit that they don't have a second to understand what the woman is telling you. And it's very simple. Mr. Kohlberger will be exonerated based on the investigation that they used to arrest him. That investigation itself exonerates him. It's not so hard to understand. And yet, you know, you got a lot of people running around making all these accusations and tearing the guy down. The guy did it. The guy went to school for this. His whole life was to plan this murder. Rather than give the guy the benefit of the doubt that he was just a young kid, made a mistake, straightened his life out, has a loving family, corrected his life, and went on to go into higher education to get into criminology. That's who the guy is. And to step outside of that and accuse him of being a monster, a massive murderer, with the evidence, with no evidence, because the PCA is not evidence. The PCA is an opinion that's rapidly falling apart. And yet we stick on these destroy the guy, the drama, the outrage. It's got to stop. We need to turn the fucking corner and start paying attention to the facts, accept them for what they are. You can argue back and forth what you think they mean, but then move on. Don't start creating streams about 400 people watching the fucking murder on a cell phone. Don't start creating streams. Go ahead.
I think the Kohlberger situation is possibly the ammunition needed for one side of an argument as to why there shouldn't even be PCAs disclosed. If because you can look at that multiple ways, right? The PCA in and of itself, I look at that and I say there's nothing factual that actually truly puts him at that home. You're not making blatant accusations based off of facts that then have to be contested. You're making accusations based on opinions about facts that would imply he did something, which creates nothing but reasonable doubt. Right. And it's like now you want to fight and say that the public is going to be biased if this survey goes out, and it's like that makes no fucking sense. Are you basically admitting that there's no way for him to have a fair trial? Because that's the way I left that 5 minutes I saw. That's the way I left thinking, was that you're basically admitting that there's no way for him to have a fair trial. What the fuck do you do now?
Yeah, and I don't see it that way. I see what Bill Thompson's doing is that he wants to keep the lid on what the public opinion is. It's favorable to the prosecution. It's favorable to his career and his standing in the community. That's what Bill Thompson's position is based on. You can see that by the way he gets upset and he kind of loses a little of his composure. He's trying to protect Bill. This ain't about you, Bill. This is about 4 young, beautiful people that were slaughtered. And honest, and I'm going to say this, an honest misunderstanding of the facts by your investigators. I in no way, shape, or form believe that anybody's doing this to Kohlberger out of malice. I think now it is to protect their backs, but I do not think that the allegations against Mr. Kohlberger were created as a direct act of criminality or conspiracy or anything like that. I truly don't think that has anything to do with this case whatsoever. But here we are. and all of your public perspectives and all of your opinions in the PCA is Ann keeps knocking one down after the other down after the other down. When do you let this kid go? When do you come to the public and say that we really misunderstood the information that we had in hand? And we're reviewing it now, and we're going to come up with new suspects, because I can't imagine on any sense of truth where Mr. Kohlberger can be affiliated with this crime. There is no thing putting him at that crime other than what we were purported to believe is a DNA sample that was developed in a black box at Othram Laboratories, a black box that the defense is being denied access to. That black box determined that to be Kohlberger. The question needs to be asked. If Kohlberger's name was there first, was Kohlberger the one they were looking for when they put that sample in the black box? In other words, did the result of that black box get influenced by cognitive dissonance because they had the name to go look for? Kohlberger. Why is black box private company software? Why is that not being given to the defense? There's something wrong in that DNA analysis, no less wrong than the analysis of the traveling of the vehicle. And I'll give you an example of the traveling of the vehicle. When you read the PCA, they claim Kohlberger was there the next morning, right? You're familiar with that, aren't you, Cletus?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, they claim he was there the next morning, and that he was there until 9:21 a.m., and that he then appeared at his apartments at 9:32 a.m. The problem with that is it's a 21-minute drive or a 22-minute drive from King Road to his apartment. And the cell phone pings show 11 minutes between when he left the cell phone area of King Road and got to the Steptoe Apartments. He couldn't have done that in 11 minutes.
No, he could have been within range of the same tower, but if it's a 22-minute drive, there's no way he was there in 11. So
correct.
Yeah.
And if he was in the middle, let's be fair. If he was in the middle and that tower's outer range was what he was hitting, the tower that covers King Road, and he was halfway between, and that tower does allow coverage for that kind of distance, then that also tells you he wasn't at King Road. The 11 minutes now supports that he wasn't at King Road. So the problem with the accusatory instrument is that there's so many holes in it, and not one thing places Kohlberger there. Not one solid piece of evidence, not one witness, not a video, not a picture, not a voice, nothing. You have to glean that from the story the police are telling you. And listen, what the police are telling you in the very beginning, I would say could have had accuracy, could be true. But the longer it's been out here and the more these court's proceedings have moved and the more we keep reading these motions, it just isn't likely Mr. Kohlberger is the gentleman that committed this crime.
Well, and there was a statement that was made yesterday by Ann Taylor that I would have to say goes above and beyond her duty as a defense attorney if she's just defending somebody. She said, "I believe in the innocence of my client." And that's a powerful thing, I would think, for an attorney to actually say, is their belief in innocence.
Right.
Because at this point, if you've received all, she hasn't received every bit of discovery that she wants, but she's received quite a bit. And at this point, if you've received the discovery you've received and you still believe in his innocence, that's a powerful message to the public in and of itself, if people actually think about it.
And let me give you an example of prosecutorial misconduct. Folks, I think I should have been a lawyer, but I'm too old for that now. My daughter is, so that's awesome. But here's you want to hear an example of prosecutorial misconduct? That fucking piece of shit, Bill Thompson, knew the whole time that there was no connection between Kohlberger stalking those kids and the rumors and everything being pushed through the media. And he never once came forward and corrected it. He never once he didn't have to say he wasn't stalking him. He didn't have to expose gag order information, but he should have said to the media, listen, we don't know, and you especially don't know what's true and what's not true. So let's not go leading people down trails that may or may not be factual. You see, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. And this guy chooses all the time to be the piece of shit that he is. And he doesn't want to do the right thing. So Brian's been held under the suspicion and under the accusation of being a stalker for 17 fucking months. And never was it true. And Thompson knew it the whole time. That to me is prosecutorial misconduct. That's what your government is not supposed to be able to do to you. And the worst part about that is not only is the government not supposed to do that to you, but most of you morons jump on band with the government and do it with them.
No, I
What say
can't
you?
argue with that. I cannot argue with that, right? Because it's like a game, right? And it's like the easiest game in the world to one side, right? Because they arrest him, then it comes out he's an incel. Then it comes out he's a stalker, and there's all kinds of people that come forward and try to back up and support the claim that he's an incel and how horrible of a man he is, and how all these these women start coming forward and saying he's done this and he's done that. And then if that, for the people that doesn't take off with, the vast majority of the other side start coming up with fucking crazy shit, like your go-to, right? Ethan's face was pissed on, and then they deleted all the coverage with images of parking lots and black background.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff is listen, if you're totally doing entertainment, you want to ridicule stuff like this, then there's dark comedy. I'm not going to be the one to be part of it, but to come out and insist these stories these people have heard, or they, when you make a firm conclusion and you're doing it based on inaccurate data, like when they're telling you he turned his phone off to hide his location, criminals are known to do. Okay, that whole thing is a story. There is truth to the story, but where in that story does it say Brian Kohlberger was witness turning his phone off? Brian Kohlberger was seen. Brian Kohlberger, electronically we proved that he turned his phone. Where is that data? Something factual that connects Brian Kohlberger to a criminal behavior of trying to hide his location by turning off his phone. How do you fucking just run away that and determine that's all that could possibly mean? Because the police said it must be true. And now you run around with this idea, why'd he turn off his phone? Listen, why are you such an asshole asking me to explain why some guy turned off his phone when the fucking cops can't even prove to you he really did turn off his phone? Why are we going to have that conversation? That's what I mean by these rabbit holes fuck everybody up. And they come out of nowhere with questions that are unanswerable, acting like they're of superior intellect. Oh, I'm smarter than you. No, you fucking idiot. Nowhere in there does it say Kohlberger's phone was turned off as witnessed by Jane fucking Doe to hide his location. If it said that, then there would be no argument about the phone. But the simple fact is they're saying that it looks like what he might have done. And now you want me to try to explain to you why would he have turned his phone off? The fuck do I know? Right?
Yeah.
Do you follow what I'm saying? These are the rabbit holes we get embroiled in these things.
Well, and think about the jury, right? Because each of these points you've got are valid, and they're valid questions that have to be asked. And each one in and of itself creates a rabbit hole. So imagine being in a jury box and listening to the two sides of this go at it. Right. Each of them going down the rabbit hole that supports their argument, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it'll be. If you have no hard facts that prove anything, then everything you got is a rabbit hole.
Right, and it's circumstantial evidence, a like car.
Right.
They describe a like car to suspect vehicle 1. Well, a like car isn't his car. I don't want I don't want to have a likeness to something and be put in prison for life or shot and killed. My likeness to something isn't me. The entire word itself, your likeness, is telling you it ain't you. And yet people run around, well, suspect vehicle 1, it's a likeness to, and they ignore the word likeness like it doesn't matter. It does matter. They're using that word for a reason. It's because they can't identify Kohlberger in that car, and that being Kohlberger's car. There's no conclusive identification of him in that car. It's a likeness. And when you see that in some kind of legal format, or even, it was the likeness to your son that shot the BB that took my window out. Well, goddamn, that's not my kid. How do you know that's my kid? Well, it kind of looked like him. Well, no, that's not enough information for me to call my insurance company for your window. I'm sorry. But that kind of common sense doesn't seem to have a place on social media anywhere.
Well, they're all, like we talked about before, the viewer and the creator, right? And the creator starts as a viewer. And before social media, the viewers were viewing mainstream media. So of course there's going to be a lot of likeness to mainstream in the social media aspect. And it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
And it's as if people feed on that bullshit, and then they want to try to outsmart the bullshit or try to put themselves as they're smarter than you. And look, and I'm not making a claim that anybody is stupid. I'm making the claim that people are being misguided and that they're following ignorance. They're just not, it's like people need to be taught how to spot fiction and how to avoid the discussion of fiction, right? Because that's what the stream is. This stream is literally follow the fiction tellers. Why do we follow these fiction tellers? Why are we following people that talk about the Fight Club on Linda Lane and videos? And then you got that Bebop, that one goofy broad. There's all kinds of these creators out there that are coming up. That big dude, Metal Mayhem, coming up with all of these unsupportable conspiracy theorist things about 4 people that have been horrifically taken from the world by a knife. As far as we know. We know they're gone, but the knife is what they've told us. We don't know it's true. But if your whole case is on the DNA, and as you're going through this case and more information's coming forward, and you're starting to see, there's some question as to whether Kohberger's involved or not, but they got his DNA. It's up to you to try to understand how in the world did they come up with his DNA? Where did they come up with his DNA? And why is the method they used to identify him not being released to the defense? Why does that company have a protection that supersedes this man's constitutional right? That's the question we should all be asking, whether Brian Kohberger is guilty or not. That's what the IGG stuff, that's what we as a group should focus on. That company should have no right to privacy when your particular software claims that Brian Kohberger's DNA was on that sheet. You agree with that, don't you, Cletus?
I do.
And yet, where are the fucking viewers that have a common sense to understand that question is probably one of the best questions that need to be resolved? The public needs to be aware that if the government uses a company that has third-party software, they claim a proprietary software, that whatever that work that company does will not be disclosed to you. Is that okay with you as an American? Forget whether Kohberger's fucking guilty or not. That's a huge issue with this case, and nobody talks about it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to come in, if something that came from proprietary software is coming into a case against you, you should absolutely have the right to everything to do with that so that you can develop a defense against it. Because there should be expert witnesses on both sides.
Or
that's the only way to have a fair argument, right?
Yeah, where's Golf Inspector? I could put a link here for Golf. Is the Golf Inspector in the room? I don't even know. I look at, if you're I would make the argument, whether people like it or not, if I was an attorney, I would make this argument that if you picked up DNA sample, you have, let's say you have whatever, you've got 20 pieces of skin. If you in any way, shape, or form modify or change whatever those 20 pieces can give you, they give you a result that's inconclusive, leads you nowhere. That's the extent of the evidence. If you now take that evidence and put it through some scientific process to magnify and manipulate it, then it's no longer evidence from a crime scene. It's manipulated and magnified. In other words, you altered the collected evidence. It should not be admissible in court. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. You got 20 skin cells that couldn't identify me. You should not be able to alter that in any way, scientifically or otherwise. It's akin to this, folks. If I find a lead fragment for a bullet, right? And then I start building I define and build a bullet from that fragment and claim that this is the bullet from a gun that shot that person. No, All you got is a bullet fragment. There's no way for you to determine what caliber gun that came from. So what right does the government have to build that bullet into a caliber that's consistent with what a murder weapon would have discharged? That's what this genealogical and this DNA shit is. When they take your DNA and they decide they're going to magnify and manipulate it. No, I don't find that to be too acceptable either. You got 20 skin cells. They told you what they told you. Find something else, bro. Don't send it to some geek, nerdy dude with fucking glasses that's 6'9" and weighs 80 pounds to magnify it. I don't want to hear it.
Well, I'll give you a good example of why there's a margin of error in that shit. I was watching a thing last night where they had drilled into the ice. I forget the depth. It was like 6,000 meters or something in the Arctic Circle, and this scientist that was doing this project discovered, I forget how many new DNA samples or DNA samples of how many new creatures. Well,
Okay.
that same study got taken and given to 2 or 3 other experts, and every one of them said that his samples were contaminated and that his entire solutions that he came up with were wrong.
Okay.
Right. But because that guy has an expert, title in front of his name, he sounds credible until another expert has the same information,
Yeah.
the same facts,
Right.
and evaluates them from their point of view too.
And that's why they got to bring experts into extra. But I'm saying the actual any modification of evidence to then say that you're supplying me with crime scene evidence is inaccurate. The modification has to be left out, in my opinion.
But I
I
think
don't know.
in this situation, it's already been brought in, right? Like that is what it is, and that's why I think it's important for it to be everything about that to be provided to the defense, because this is where it could absolutely be a case that goes down in the record books, right? Because it could be the case that stops that from happening, and if they don't give the defense everything involved in that, then it will never will be, because they don't have a fight if they don't have the information.
Yeah, I think most importantly, I think what people don't really have an understanding of is actually what this nation is and what and why the Constitution exists. I think people are completely clueless on that, or they have just enough knowledge to not want to know more, and they've convinced themselves they know all they need to know. A lot of these things that are taking place in a lot of these criminal cases and in a lot of the political cases as well they're not firing on all cylinders. It just isn't right. And Americans don't seem to want to stand tall and question these things. They're too easy to fall for the drama. This, oh my God, he stole his sister's phone. He did heroin. He's going to his criminology classes. He must have been planning to kill people like this. And people accept that and want to discuss that. And it's just disgusting.
Kind of like Chris Proudfoot whipped his child with a belt. So therefore he didn't like him. He's a narcissist, and he should he should be arrested for murdering a missing kid.
Right, because the mob, the witch hunt decides that that's what needs to be done. The witch hunt decided Kohberger's guilty, and in fact, the only reason I got involved with true crime was because of the Kohberger PCA. That's the only reason. I never touched true crime ever, even before that, ever. The most I ever interacted with true crime is I watched that Sherlock Holmes show with that Lucy Liu, because I do like Lucy Liu. And so that was my exposure to true crime, was that show. Not streaming on the internet, not going to people's websites, not going to people's channels. I came in specifically because of that probable cause affidavit. That affidavit is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And at a probable cause hearing, Brian Kohberger would be out. He'd have been out of jail this whole time. The whole time. Had a probable cause hearing been allowed. Had that piece of crap bill didn't run around everybody's back and get an indictment to quash the probable cause hearing, which exists so that the accused can question the government, and the government has to prove its actions were not just lawful, but they add them together. They make him and that person accusable. That's the purpose of a probable cause hearing. And Bill Thompson took that away from him in a sneaky little backdoor deal. Wrong. That's just wrong. And nobody, we all know that. That's the thing. Universally on both sides of this aisle, if you want to say he's guilty or not guilty, we all can agree with that. That his little sneaky bullshit indictment move came to avoid the probable cause hearing.
Well,
Golf inspector was supposed to come up here. She hasn't. And I only want to bring that up because she had something on, and I remember Judge saying that because that did come up in a hearing, the probable cause hearing and the indictment, which prevented Kohberger from presenting his case. Okay, and made that argument, and the judge kind of referred or mumbled, "Well, you did that because you didn't have a strong case." Something to that effect came out of Judge's mouth directed at Mr. Thompson months and months and months ago in one of their getting together hearings.
Yeah.
Because that probable cause affidavit, folks, on its face is very, very, very weak. There's nothing in there that's conclusive. And if you're going to argue that you arrested him without using any of the DNA, then my challenge to anybody that thinks Mr. Kohberger is guilty, my challenge to you is take the PCA, ignore the DNA because the prosecution has already clearly stated that it was not used to arrest Kohberger, and then read the PCA and show me in the PCA what fact determined Kohberger committed the crime. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
And Bill Thomas reiterated it the other day. It was said in the court. It's been clarified that the DNA was not used to arrest Mr. Kohberger. And Ann keeps saying, then what? Then I don't see how they even got to my client. Right? But my point is, if you really think Kohberger is guilty, you cannot consider the DNA. That has nothing to do with his arrest. So show us, come into this stream, make comments on my Twitter, and show me in that probable cause affidavit a conclusive accusation that Kohberger did this. Show me evidence in there. And the catch is you can't.
No, because I mean, at the end of the day, I think the general public cares more about identifying a villain than identifying the right villain.
Correct. They want the drama.
And Bill Thompson, at the end of the day, works for the public, right? And, imagine that happening in a small town. If you live in a small town, a college community, and something horrible like that happens, the only thing you want is for a villain to be caught. Once that villain's caught, you can go back to feeling more comfortable,
Right.
Go back to the way of life.
Yeah. This applies when we look at Sebastian Rogers, how easy and how comfortable and how well people just kind of fell into the Chris did it routine and have turned him into the biggest villain that's ever been a villain. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just an incredible process that the viewer themselves drives, that the viewer themselves don't even realize the chaos and confusion. Who is it? That batshit crazy, what's that woman's name? Betty Boop or some assholes coming in.
Bullhorn. Yeah.
Bullhorn bullshit. Yeah. The Bullhorn bullshitter is now going to bring her presence to this missing Sebastian. That person shouldn't have any, they should charge her $5,000 tolls to go from one road to the next to keep her out of there.
And I would venture to guess she's going to be here by Saturday because I just saw JLR promoting that fat fucking fraud, JT Olson, that fucking rent-a preacher that has made a whole Facebook page about rebuke the Proudfoots. I guess he's going to have another hate rally. And I find it ironic that now Bullhorn Betty is coming. JLR was here just in time for him to show up last weekend, and now Bullhorn Betty's coming. I promise you she'll be here in time to make sure she gets his bullshit on camera. It's just insanity. Absolute insanity.
Here, someone says it's a really dumb country to believe that PCA. I believe that PCA is great investigative work that needed to be completed before they came to a conclusion and made a charge against somebody. I think that they would have then discounted lots that's in there, or they would have focused their investigation on a couple of other potential suspects that were not Brian Kohberger. Like I said with that Linda Lane footage, if in fact you take that and look at that, the car that goes and parks at 4:07 a.m. is clearly not an Elantra. Clearly not.
Well, at the end of the day, I think the PCA is probable suspicion, right?
Correct.
And it's enough to have brought him in Pennsylvania for questioning and
Yeah.
get a search warrant for his DNA. And at that point, if you
Yes.
have a match to that DNA that was on the sheath, now you have factual basis in the PCA to have probable cause. It's still arguable, but at least you have something that absolutely ties him to that house, and it's in the document that you created for his arrest. But they rushed it. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't know how that could ever be argued that they rushed it and quite possibly fucked it up to the point where quite possibly the person that did it is going to get away with it.
And here's the other issue that I have. And I don't know. I don't know Judge, but I have a sneaky suspicion that he doesn't believe the prosecution when it comes to the non-use of DNA for that arrest. And the reason I say that is I've watched a lot of political judges, a lot of courts, and a lot of different things, and now with the criminal cases. But oftentimes, you know, they when you play cards, there's a thing called a tell. Do you know what that is, Cletus?
Yeah.
And the fact that Judge has said twice, to my knowledge, that in fact the DNA was not used, as the prosecution has argued, as a means to identify or arrest Bryan Kohberger. The fact that he openly states that almost tells me that he is paying attention to that. In other words, that's a very important thing. It's probably the most important when it comes to the arrest. And without the DNA, you have to ask the question, how the fuck is what in there enough to arrest him? See, I don't think Judge is as stupid or as bad as people want to make him out to be. I think we jump to conclusions too quick because we love drama and we let these fiction tellers treat us they trained us how to deal with information. But there's, like I had said way back when the first thing came out about Bethany seeing somebody nude. And I brought it up and people started to attack me over it. I said, listen, it's such an unusual statement. It's so out there that you have to keep it on the board. I'm not saying it's true, but it's so outlandish and doesn't fit anything else we've ever heard that you must maintain knowledge of that information. If it's not good information, fantastic. But that's an outlier that wasn't consistent with all the other rumors and all the other accusations that Bethany, her friend, said she saw a naked man running from the property. Now, we don't know if that's true, but it's such a weird statement. Or the other people that were up at that Jack in the Box that had said the person that ordered it, the DoorDash driver, ordered and picked up that order and then delivered it. That's an unusual sequence of events for a DoorDash driver. Highly unusual. Is it real? I don't know. But it's so out of the norm for how DoorDash operates and how you normally deal with DoorDash to operate your food or to order your food that I've always kept that on the back burner too. Because it's those weird comments sometimes that come out of nowhere and blow something up, right?
Right.
So it's very interesting how those little details that they may have no bearing on the case at all, but they're noteworthy. And rather than making them noteworthy, people just ignore them or they attack you. And then they're willing to jump onto this nonsense that this kid's face was peed on. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Cletus, I can't get other people. Well, I know who would want to come up here, but I want to just knock them out. So I'm not going to invite it. Your buddy.
Who's that?
I'm not going to say their name. But anyway, let's see. I really wish. Yeah. It's Ben that D&D saw the driver. Let's see this. Ben said the Daily saw the driver, suspect vehicle one, but it's all hearsay speculation. That's what I mean. There's nothing to confirm that. There's nothing that confirms Bryan Kohberger's car was part of what you're seeing in those videos. There isn't any idea of the car. There's a unique bumper sticker, a unique dent. There's nothing. And so because of that, you can't rely on that being Kohberger. You have to be fair until the police can confirm that is Kohberger's car with evidence. Then you can't accept it as true because they're not telling you it's true. in their explanation of what they saw. It's a car. It's got a likeness to suspect vehicle 1. So they're telling you they can't identify Kohberger in that car as him. And that's what I mean. It's not that hard to deal with information because they're telling you what they know.
Just like the DNA on the sheath has a likeness to Brian Kohberger's when it's ran through proprietary software that the defense can't access. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. How about this? I don't believe that Brian Kohberger is completely. Let me just say this. Brian Kohberger could have parked somewhere else and walked down there and did it. This is something that any reasonable person would have to consider. Mm-hmm. If you look at the evidence presented in the PCA, none of that evidence shows Kohberger. But that doesn't mean that there isn't evidence somewhere or that there isn't the chance that he did something opposite of what they're telling you and was still the perpetrator. Now, we'll never know, but my point is, if some other evidence came forward and made that argument, even though it contradicts the PCA, if it's a solid ID that Kohberger was in that house, you have to accept it. You see? That's the problem. And knowledge is really easy to deal with because it'll show you with verifiable evidence what is and what is not. And then when you don't have that, it's now you're making a judgment call, and they're often wrong.
Yeah, fairness only exists in facts, right?
Yeah, if there's no fact to support it, yeah, there's a lot of hearsay. And I don't want to. I only brought up those 2 situations is because those things are great to keep in the bag, but they're not worth creating big giant discussions over. The Bethany seeing someone naked and the DoorDash delivery situation. Those are things that are great. We know that they've been said, but let's not create big stories out of them and dig into them because they're not a fact. They're curious pieces of information that may apply or may not apply to this case. So I don't want to dig into, like here. From Watch the Obsession has 2 frat members who said, well, whatever, I don't care what the frat members said. Okay, they're kind of confirming what that other person said, and that's and at this point there's no fact to support that rumor or this rumor, but it doesn't mean it's not noteworthy. You follow what I mean, Cletus?
Yeah, but I mean the question would be, right, if it's noteworthy and it's factual, why are they talking to a YouTuber and not running to the defense attorneys and saying, hey, question me. I'm one of the 400 witnesses, and I will talk to you. Does that make sense? Because the last thing,
there aren't 400 witnesses. Don't go there. Don't say that.
Well, whatever, right? However, Ann Taylor worded it to where there's a certain number of people that they've got to go talk to. And they're having a hard time getting,
But those people Cletus, those people were self-generated by the bias survey. Those are the 400 people that answered the bias survey that was just in court.
Well, then disregard the number. Let's just go with the comment, right? Why wouldn't those 2 people, those 2 frat members, be running to the prosecution or the defense and saying, look, I have information? Because the first thing that would happen if they did would be that they would get told to shut the fuck up. They would tell what they know and they would be told to shut up because they could create an unfair trial.
Right. And an unfair trial, when you've got the media slandering this individual and telling you these stories that his whole life was based on eventually killing people, and you can't put that in a survey to see if people are aware of that information, that information has been out there 17 months. And Bill Thompson's going to, of course, the state and the government's going to complain about it, but we as citizens should realize how horrific that is that he would even make that complaint, because most of the people that are dead set that this guy is guilty have based their information, and I don't care what argument they think they can make, but they base their information on circumstantial theories, not evidence. And and that's what they're doing to Chris Proudfoot. That's what they did to the hospital for Donna Imes. That's what they did with the Kansas City 3. There's no evidence. You're taking supposition and conspiracy theory, and you're accepting it as real, and then you're taking it like a baseball bat to destroy somebody. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen, man.
And the
'Cause we-
unfortunate part about both situations is if the truth never gets found out of what happened in the Idaho 4 or with Sebastian Rogers, there's absolutely no justice can be served upon anything. Does that make sense?
yeah,
All Brian will Brian would never be able to, if he doesn't, if a jury doesn't find him not guilty and he can't prove some type of mishandling of some way by the prosecution, he'll never be able to win any kind of suit against the state. If Chris Proudfoot, if Sebastian never comes out from behind a tree and says, "Hey, I've been hiding all this time. Why ain't y'all found me?"
yeah.
If he never pops out, if he never shows up, Chris Proudfoot would never be able to get justice for the just absolute just annihilation he's endured throughout this thing.
And how to me that's the important part. That's why I say it's the audience that's the problem. The audience feeds this beast. The audience goes to Bullhorn bullshit Betty. The audience goes to Bullhorn JL. I investigate. It's incredible where the attention from the audience ends up going. This conversation that we're having, people can disagree with it, but in no way, shape, or form have any of the statements I made about Kohberger not come from official documents. Right now, unless I misread them, feel free to correct me if I misread them. But I'm not bringing up no kind of tunnel, no blood on a roof, no fight in a parking lot, no great orchestrators of whatever the hell that crazy broad said. What the hell was it that she said? You think you remember?
Scrutinizer.
What is it?
Central scrutinizer.
Yeah,
That's
no
what you're
central
referring to.
scrutinizer determined that a manhole cover was being moved because the cops were too dumb and the dogs were unable to sniff a manhole cover that was moved to hide evidence. Yeah. Wow. And all of the attention from the users, the viewers, flock to that kind of bullshit. Right? You're looking at a coat that was found on the ground. Yeah, I think the cop throwing the coat on the ground. Do you remember the clips where they're showing a cop finds a big coat? It looks like it belongs to people claim it belongs to Bethany. There's no way you can know who that coat fucking belonged to from seeing a guy in a video handle it like that. You don't know that's Bethany's coat.
Right.
You agree?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So everybody's come to this conclusion that's Bethany's coat, and he just left it there. Let me just say, if I was the chief of police in there, I would issue a fucking ticket for the guy for littering. That's what I would do to that cop. Okay. Just to embarrass him. Because if that jacket was part of the crime scene and you handle it that way, whoa, you're out of here. However, just to get things started to make it fun, it should have been treated that way. And you didn't, and you threw it back on the ground, therefore you littered. He should get a ticket for that. That's what your bosses are supposed to do. That's how the system should work. You don't. How could you have someone on video doing that? And you as a boss not bring the guy in and make an issue out of it? That's a fucking problem. What he did. Corruption. Because now we'll never know, and all you conspiracy theorists are hanging on that coat like it's I solved the case on my cell phone. Look at the jacket, right?
Yeah. Well, and imagine, right? Not to promote any crazy fucking conspiracy theories, but just to make a point. Imagine that coat is a piece of evidence that could absolutely prove something. It could absolutely link a perpetrator to the situation.
Right.
The corruption involved in the way that the thing was handled is what could prevent it. It's what could have led to the situation we're in right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that cop behaves exactly like the viewers on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And on social media. I'm going to stop just calling out YouTube. It's all a social media. You're all a bunch of lunatics, bro. You're all fucked up. You all need to be taught how to deal with information. You don't even have a clue. You let your emotions get involved. Right? I mean, I have a connection to Sebastian in that I was abused and I did end up, and I was in a bad step family and it turned out bad and I was out at 14. But let me tell you, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in the end. As I grew and matured and lived life, I realized that did provide me with an opportunity, as unfavorably as it was presented and as unfavorable as the situation was, a lot of good came from it. Right? I mean, I'm still here. It didn't fucking kill me. And nobody allots for that differentiating, right? Oh, your parents slapped you and threw you out of the house, and oh, what a bunch of piece of shit they were. Well, that may be your judgment of them, but unknown to anybody at the time, including me, that situation worked out great. It was the best situation for all of us. But and nobody will want to hear that side of it. They'll just want to attack my step parents. And believe me, there's a lot of reasons I could attack them too. I'm not saying they're great people by any means, but the fact of the matter is the results, the facts, the proof, what came of it matters. And when you look at these cases and the political stories, I mean, your politicians behave exactly like you all behave. That's the funniest thing of all. You all behave that way. Look at a lot of these streamers that for a couple of dollars will throw your ass under the bus or let their people throw your ass under the bus to cause chaos and confusion. Right?
Or let their people attack the people
Right.
that are actively in their streams. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I do. I learned this from a 4'5" fucking counselor when I recovered from my addiction. And she told me, I don't buy that bullshit. You can lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink. She said, give me that horse and a bag of salt and I'll have it drain that fucking lake. I was like, whoa, honey. This woman was fierce, man. She was like a miniature Clue. She could be Clue's little sidekick. For real, man. She was like a peanut of a human being. It was crazy, but absolutely fucking correct, man.
Yeah, that's a great fucking saying. That's a great saying.
Yeah. And I respected that woman because she said things that it makes sense, man.
Yeah.
So who else was coming up on this panel before this thing gets shut down? It's actually been an hour now. We've done an hour, Cletus.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to jump down before I turn into a pumpkin. Do what?
Yeah, I'm saying we've done our time, and I don't want you turning into a pumpkin. You would be a very, very skinny, tall, ugly pumpkin. It wouldn't work.
No, I don't think it would work at all.
No, I don't think you'd make a good pumpkin.
No.
Or a good Jack.
What the fuck?
Yeah, you're better. You're better as a Cletus. I don't know if Jack O'Lantern would work.
You've already got the title of Jack, Mr. Jackass.
Mr.
Your ass hurts.
Your ass hurts, bro. Yeah, don't come to me like that. Your ass hurts. We know what you're doing. I do got to change that background. It's a bit funny though, and you can't really read it because those S's look like 8s. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh my god! All right, well, Cletus.
Yes,
what's your last word there, Cletus?
I don't know. I would say, yeah, fairness is in facts. I think that's going to be my saying for the night. Fairness is in the facts.
I agree with you 100%. There's no ambiguity to that statement. So it was awesome having you here. You're being part of this.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. One last thing. My last thing was booting him out of here. It's funny and this happens with all of my friends. I have this knack of being in a conversation with you on a phone or whatever it might be. And as I get to the point where I just want out, I'll bring up a topic or ask a question. And as the person begins to answer it, I just hang up the fucking phone. And now they all do it to me. And that's the funny thing. It starts to catch on. That childish bullshit, which is fun, catches on. And I see them do it to other people. And I'm like, I mean, and at heart, we're all kids, man. But at some point, you've got to put on your big boy pants and you've got to take the information in front of you and take it at face value and accept it as the only available fact and then follow where it leads. And that's where we all fall down when it comes to dealing with knowledge. We don't want to follow the facts to where they lead. We want to bring facts in that aren't verifiable, or facts that most likely have nothing to do with the situation at hand. And then we want to paint a picture of a demon or a witch. And we want to go on our witch hunt and start destroying somebody. And that's just so crazy that's how social media works. And the funny thing is, and I say this all the time to you, that's how it is in politics. That's how it is with the media. And then we all make this argument, we don't pay attention to the media. I'm not political. Well, you lying son of a bitch, quit lying to yourself. Because your actions and your behaviors mirror theirs. Mirror them. So you may not pay attention to them, but they certainly trained you, didn't they? And that cycle needs to stop. We need to become independent with our own independent topics, for our own independent issues. Eventually, the stream is going to get totally dedicated to independent issues, independent acts, independent things we can do independently, and more importantly, as individuals of a group, to start affecting change and doing things that'll make a difference. One of the recent bills that just didn't get passed through Congress because 19 Republicans didn't vote for it. Oh, those 19 Republicans should be getting thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of thank you letters. And the other 190 or whatever, the other 200 Republicans that voted for the bill should be getting email bombed. You son of a bitch. You need to stop that 702 FISA program. It needs to be changed, and the laws need to be followed. And those people should be getting emails every hour on the hour by voters. Okay? And whether they do anything with it or not, I promise you that you will become a news story. Tens of thousands of us are emailing these people. Thank you for preventing the government that's been misusing a foreign intelligence surveillance authority, a foreign spy network that we're able to surveil through our government. Is being turned on American citizens, and it's designed to only observe foreigners, right? Thank you for the guys that went against it. But all the Democrats, all the Republicans that voted for it, they should be getting an onslaught of emails. It should be nonstop on the internet. These issues need to be addressed. And what's going to happen is another issue is going to come forward. Right now, Elon Musk is fighting free speech in Brazil. Next week, some other issue is going to come forward, and that's going to get put on the back burner. We do ourselves no service. In fact, we are our own worst enemy. And we absolutely need, as a group of people, to accept that. And the best part is that means then we could do something. That's right, Kimber. Be the change. We all need to become the change. We all need to stop going down rabbit holes and following this information the way it's laid out to us without us, creating all these monsters in the closet. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And we should be able to agree on a few things. You can interpret the same information differently than me. But if the information says that the car is a likeness to Mr. Koberger's, a likeness is not Koberger's car. And we can agree to that. And if you're unable to agree with that, then my advice is for you to go look up the word likeness, understand the word likeness, and then if you want to re-enter the conversation, you've got to re-enter it with the knowledge that likeness, in fact, isn't proof that it was you. So you have to accept that. Now, that does not mean that somewhere down the road they're going to come up with imagery that shows it's you. But until the imagery is conclusively you, and it only shows a likeness to you or your car, that isn't proof that you were there. I don't know how people struggle with such simple understandings, but they do. And the reason why they do is because the fiction tellers will bring up some other outrageous thing. And the outrageous thing will be debated and argued about. The 400 people watching this murder on a phone. That becomes a topic when it shouldn't be. We should have assessed the information from Koberger, left it alone, moved on, brought other cases into the mix, done other things, referred back to Koberger. You should have a big melting pot of information here. And it doesn't work like that. Right. There's 1,000 cars like mine on the road, says Kimber. But they aren't my car. They have a likeness to her car. They're the same make, same model, same year, same color. They have a likeness to Kimber's car. But that does not place Kimber at the scene of any crime. And that should apply, folks. Common sense. That should apply to Kohberger. I don't want to convict somebody on a likeness. I don't want to put someone to death on a likeness. I don't want to claim that this person slaughtered four young college students. I don't want to hang the guy with that information if it can't be proven. And that's the way our system, because the system, folks, I'm going to end with this. Your Constitution is to protect you from government. Let's make this perfectly clear. Everything in the Constitution is a wall the government is not supposed to climb. As a matter of fact, folks, it's in my humble opinion, if you could ever imagine me being humble, I know it might take work, but put some effort in. In my humble opinion, any act by the government to interfere with any of your constitutional limits is in and of itself a criminal act. The government has no basis to bring cases against guns, free speech, your right to privacy. You see, those statements in that document, that's what they're there for. You have no business messing with this. This is a hard stop. So anytime somebody brings up an assault weapon ban, a magazine clip, that in and of itself is a crime, as far as I'm concerned. The courts should not allow the government to bring those actions. Now, you, as a citizen, might want to come up with some civil actions or something, but the government itself, the Department of Justice, the governor of California, the governor of New York, directing their attorney generals to take these cases, and that in and of itself should be a criminal act. They're there to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, not to question, interfere, and destroy, which is what they're supposed to be protecting it from. And they're the perpetrators that are attacking it. And Americans, you as Americans, how you're not able to come to that understanding, how you don't realize that, how you don't do something about it is stunning to me. Okay? And that we've got to be able to get to that fucking point, folks, where we're smart enough to see these distinctions. And I'm going to do this thing I said I was going to do yesterday. I got to do it today. And this is kind of what I'm going to end with. I'm going to try to end with this in my streams. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures shall not be violated. Okay? And they violate that shit on a daily basis. We can change it. We will change it. I will stay here until enough of us can make a change. Or I will stay here until the momentum is built and the direction is agreed upon by the people that are around, and I will step away. I'm not here for money. I'm not here for fame. I'm not here to get your approval. I'm here in an attempt to help wake us all up that we, the people, are the government. We, the people, using the same devices they use to hold us down, can use the same devices, spend the exact same amount of time, and affect change on a worldwide basis. At the tips of our fingers, a power that's almost godlike in the realm of human history when you think about it, folks. I can talk and send my voice anywhere on this globe. I can talk to people in space from the convenience of my own home. This invention is the most powerful invention for freedom that's ever existed. And you're all just too fucked up to see it. But if you can see it, then you can use it. And the more of us that can see it, the more of us that can use it, the quicker all of this noise and bullshit stops. Everybody have a good night. Be good. Stay out of trouble. If you're going to get in trouble, make sure it's fun trouble and don't get caught. I'll be back again tomorrow at 9 p.m.